Okay, it's 12 o'clock. Call the meeting of the Fire and Police Committee to order. Public comment.
Roll call
Roll
first.
call, I'm sorry.
Bill Jenks,
Here.
Fred Noble,
Here.
Ron Stanko,
Here.
Fred Levering,
Here.
and Keith Durr.
Here. Now we'll have public comment.
Yes. Just wanted to speak a little bit against the same old policy you have with placing the yard signs in the public right away. Seems that it works for people of one party, doesn't work for the people of the other party. And yes, Keith, it is in the public right away. Go on Museum Road, you'll see it right there. Again, I think that this, you know, I've lived in many countries. I have not seen this absurdity ever in my life. Political signs are allowed in public places. Some townships have dedicated places. We don't do this turf war before one neighbor and another, who's with Trump, who's without Trump, and so on. It's not a healthy neighborhood environment. These guys are allowed to put it in the public right away. The other ones, we send the police to pick it up. So, I think it's not funny, the bill. So, again, I don't know if this is the mark that you want to leave over your tenure as Borough Council, fine by me. But to me, it's absolutely pathetic. I think you'd have nothing better to do than to waste taxpayers' money. So, the other thing is, in the same line of thought, we have continuously asked for those no parking signs by the Cullen family to be removed. It's another sign of absolute power. We do whatever the heck we want because we own the borough. Nobody in the world has something like that. There is no parking in front of driveways all over Europe. Go to Italy, go anywhere. Not in front of the walkway, not in front of the front door. And they also have emergency services. We're not the only one with emergency services. And strangely enough, nobody cared at the time about traffic on that road. But when the other neighbors ask for the same treatment, all of a sudden, traffic flow becomes a problem. Waste of taxpayer money. Do something better with your time. If this is what we want to be reelected on, Keith, just say it, or otherwise speak against it. Good, thank you.
Bill, I have one comment.
Michelle, if any of our signs are up, we tried to make sure none of them were up.
Yes, go on Museum Road, I just told you.
I don't know where your signs are, to be honest with you, but.
We purposely said everything back, nothing's invisible.
You want a picture? I have it here.
I know where they are, I put them there. Steve and I put them there.
On Museum Road, the property line is at the fence. If your sign is smack in the middle of the public right away.
He doesn't address the Santori signs that are on planting strips on the boulevard. Yes.
Yeah, I just have one comment, which is sort of interesting. Saturday, John's gone. I'll wait till after the police, we'll wait till he's up.
Oh, okay. You want to wait till?
Yeah, I'll wait till John comes in,
Oh.
because it's in reference to the police department.
Oh, well, then let's wait till the police department starts and then you.
No problem.
Okay, we'll move on to the fire department.
Good evening, good evening. No, it's a long day, I have training tonight. Good afternoon, everyone. For the month of October, to date, there have been 146 responses consisting of 15 fires, 35 motor vehicle accidents, 33 QRS medical responses, 17 hazardous conditions, 43 alarm activations, 3 smoke detector installs. Total responses in the borough 90, total responses in Spring Township 39, total responses outside the borough 17. 56 overlapping calls. There was no reported fire damage or saved property for the month of October. Average turnout so far was 5 personnel per incident, and volunteer response for the month of October was 24. To date, 1,557 responses. For the expanded, that would have been the expanded September report, there was 239 responses system-wide. Out of those, Wyomissing responded to 144. There was no fire damage or saved property for the month of September for Wyomissing. They had 34 QRS medical responses in October with 20 patient contacts. Mutual aid given system-wide 49, mutual aid received 40. There was 70 overlapping calls consisting of 25 between Wyomissing and Spring, 12 with Wyomissing, and 33 with Spring. Our busiest day of the week was Friday with 52 incidents. Busiest hour of the day was 7 to 8 p.m. with 20 incidents. Dispatch to response time was 1 minute 57 seconds. Dispatch to on scene was 6 minutes 21 seconds. And our average on scene time was 28 minutes and 22 seconds. We gave aid to Warrendale 2 times, Western Berks Fire Department 18, Mount Pleasant, Penn Township 1, Greenfields Byrne Township 7, Moton 2, West Reading 7, Muhlenberg 3, Kenhurst 1, Brecknock 1, Cumbro Township 5, and the City of Reading 2. That's all I have for the monthly report stuff. I have more stuff for fire prevention information. Okay. So for the month of October, we had a total of 8 fire prevention events with contact of 1,483 people. We hosted the open house. We had a total attendance of 45, and special thanks to Borough Manager Bear and Secretary Miller for obtaining the snacks for us. For the fire prevention open house, we actually had 3 participants from the fire company as well that assisted with that operations. So that's all I have for that. Can I keep moving on?
Yep.
Okay. So for a hiring process update, Timothy Lambert is the successful #1 candidate. He's slated to start. He's completed all his background checks and medical evaluations. He will start November 13th, Monday, November 13th. Tim comes to us as a military veteran of the Marines. He's a volunteer with Lauraldale Fire Company, and he's currently in the process of becoming a state fire instructor. So I think he's going to be a very good addition to the department.
Fantastic.
Do you want to just, it's not specifically on the agenda, but do you want to talk about your proposed civil service?
Yes, we can.
Chief Phillips says his later, but under his agenda, but I thought it made sense since you're going to be bringing some to their attention as well.
So with the Civil Service Commission meeting November 6th, we were asked to kind of review the civil service rules and regulations. So I knew there was 2 issues at hand, looking for change, which we did a modified change already for in 3.8 general qualifications for all applicants. The current section requires a Class B commercial driver's license at the time of applying. We changed it for the this last hiring process. Once they're hired, they have 6 months to obtain the CDL. That's not an easy thing to obtain anymore. It's not like you can just go to the DMV and take the permit and then go over there with the CDL vehicle. There's classroom driving time and all that stuff involved with it. So we had changed that to 6 months after, just for this hiring process. We did an amendment in the civil service. So I'm asking to actually change it to, and just clean up the verbiage in general, to 1 year after hiring. Obviously, it's a preferred request that they have it. They need a valid driver's license and legally authorized to operate. But we extend that to 1 year because I'm not sure what's all involved with that. Public Works and the borough has a contractor that does the actual training, but I'm not real reluctant that we're going to be able to necessarily get it in the 6 month period. So if we give it a year, that gives us a little bit more buffer, so we're actually following the civil service by the letter of the law. The other thing is recording and filing applications. In the current civil service rules and regulations, it specifically says they have to be either hand delivered or mailed here to the Borough Hall, to the Borough Secretary. I want to keep that in there as well, but also offer the possibility of electronic submissions based off of whatever we say, whether that's email when we do the application. So it's just going to make it easier for people to actually drop off applications and potentially obtain applications.
Question on that. So, to apply via email, okay, now what about if somebody says, I sent an email in and I never got a response?
And that's listed in there, that's at their own basically discretion.
Well, it's no different than any application that comes in by now by hand. Melissa's time, date stamping, receipt, it would be the same
Right.
thing. When it comes in by email,
It would have to meet that deadline date.
yes.
Okay, but no, what I'm saying is, they said, I sent mine in, well, we didn't receive it, what happens?
Do you have any procedure for acknowledging receipt
Yeah.
back to the applicant?
I would think we would automatically do that. I mean, the other possibility is anytime we, have civil service applications, if we're hiring for either department, we could set up a special email box just for that has an automatic response go out when an email comes in, that way you don't have to monitor it.
Right, you can set it up for like an.
Yeah.
It just
When
protects
that
all
officer
those
flight.
involved with it.
And then going down through, I kind of actually read the civil service thing word for word. And then I kind of found some additional, some verbiage and stuff like that. So my next requested change would be under physical fitness testing. It currently says all applicants for entry-level positions or promotions of firefighter must meet the physical fitness requirements as, administered by and in accordance with the standards established by the Borough of Wyomissing. The fitness, it goes over like a physical agility test. What we've done, and I don't know how that was done, Pat was acting as the manager, we got it changed in the civil service rules and regulations prior to that. For promotion, it wasn't required to go through a physical fitness test because our personnel are following the NFPA 1592 standard for physicals every year. And during that physical, that's saying that they're fit for duty. It's also kind of evaluating their mental health, their respiratory tract, and all that kind of stuff. So basically, I would change that to any applicant for the entry-level position of firefighter must meet the physical agility requirements as administered by the borough, and taking out the promotional process. And then that, same with the physical and psychological medical examination, the current rules state that the applicant for entry level or promotion selected for the eligibility list, I would be taking that or changing that to just the applicant for entry level off of the eligibility list and removing the promotion. The probationary period, that's kind of up to question with training with public works and everything. I think, so for a full-fledged firefighter coming on, or I should say a new employee coming on, there's a 12-month probationary period. That's also in the collective bargaining agreement as well. And then it also indicated in that section 5.7 that for promotion of a current employee to the rank of fire captain or technician would also be on a 12-month probationary period. I think that's a little bit long. I believe Public Works was doing 90 days. I'm okay with that. I changed that to 6 months for a promotional process internal, because there already have to be in good merits and good standing to even get the promotion. I mean, that's spelled out in civil service, so I don't necessarily think that they should be on a 1-year probation when they're already a current employee. 6 months should be more than enough time to evaluate that.
So you would keep it the same for the new hires?
The new hires would stay at 12 months. And those are the actual changes that I have in those sections. And I'm gonna actually highlight the actual verbatim of the words that are changed from the new to the old. Just the italic section is what the current standard reads, and then the italics bold print is what the new recommendations would say, would be suggested for approval.
Are any of the other ones subject to the collective bargaining agreement, or just that one?
I have to check.
That I'm aware of, just the probationary period is in the CBA.
But that's for an entry-level
Yes.
employee, it doesn't spell out for, like a promotion internally.
So that's not a part of it?
No.
So as of right now, these are just your recommendations?
Correct.
Okay, so we need to get them reviewed first.
They're going to civil service next Monday.
Okay.
So, I mean, preferably, we'd have to amend the agenda because it's not on there, but preferably this committee would make a motion to recommend civil service adopt proposed changes.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that, but I would recommend conditioning the motion on my review and, checking against the CBA. And then also subject to the Civil Service Commission, concurrent.
You just want to wait and see.
Yeah, just wait.
Yeah, let's just wait and see what
We do that.
civil service comes back at us. And then we can, we're not in any real dire.
So you will let civil service do it first?
Yeah. And then let them come back to us with their recommendation. And Chris.
Is there anything in yours that needs immediately, the promotions to the side?
I would say for the section 5.5 and 5.6, yes, immediate, because it would have to do with promotions for this round.
Okay. I don't think it matters for this committee though, in that civil service is gonna make the recommendation for the promotions and everything else, and then council can take action on that.
Right.
It would be a bigger issue if this committee was not in favor of any of these proposed changes. Okay, we're good.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Colin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't hear any objection from the committee, just the process. Okay.
Anything else, Colin?
That's all I have, very good.
Okay.
I believe this committee is aware that Captain Holmes will be graduating from the Executive Fire Officer course from the National Fire Academy on December 8th. I had, when I was actually at the fire station for open house back in October, I guess we're still in October, I'm on to November. I had spoken to Randy Martin, who is the head of the labor organization, and asked, what if anything the department was doing to support Captain Holmes at his graduation. Randy has spoken with the entire department, all but one who already has a planned vacation and will be out of town that week, have expressed interest in being able to attend the graduation as a show of support for Captain Holmes. There is the option for them to participate by Zoom. The point that was made to me was, this is about a show of support for Captain Holmes. To be able to see them in the audience, I mean, this is, again, a very big deal what he is accomplishing. There are a few options for how we could have coverage at the station, if the whole department went. Best case scenario would be bringing in a volunteer organization or a combination of volunteer organizations for that 8-hour time period. Worst case scenario would be covering it by Spring Township, having paid employees come in, and then I would assume invoicing us for the cost.
I would like to see, since we are in a working relationship with Spring, if you have, some crew, since they're all trained on our equipment anyway.
Well, would be the questionable part. I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable with us running the ladder truck. But it doesn't mean that we can't staff an engine down there or whatever and rely on mutual aid, but we're still gonna get those 6 people.
That's
And we can also potentially still reach out to see if we can't get an aerial device in station as well.
Yeah, it'd be just like if it's out of service.
Correct.
So you could have an engine crew at
Correct.
79 as well as at 85.
Correct.
Okay, for any calls. Anybody have any questions on that? And then we'll just use mutual aid for an aerial response.
This is, if memory serves me correctly, Captain Holmes is one of 2,200 people in the country to have this type of certification. That's pretty damn impressive, and yes, I would like to see our guys there.
And it's been 2 years.
Yes,
His
it's been a
life.
long process.
Yeah. And, you know, I think we can also go a bit further as far as council, you know, once he does officially graduate in the way of a certificate or something to that effect that we can present to him. We need a motion on this?
I have a motion on the agenda.
Okay, so, I'll entertain a motion, to approve having, a standby crew from Station 85 move to 79 for the duration of the graduation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So done, thank you. Okay, anything else for the fire chief?
I do not have anything else.
Anybody
So
have any
as
questions?
a follow-up to this, as we show, or, suggested that we do something from council level, can we just make arrangements for him to be here, or, when's the meeting in December?
We don't have one because of the holidays. I was gonna
So
suggest he
January.
come to the December council.
Yeah, council meeting,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I meant.
Council.
We have a December council meeting, but we don't have fire
But
release.
what's the date of it? Is it after the 8th?
Yes, it's the
Yes.
following Tuesday.
All right,
Yeah,
well
so
then,
that's perfect.
let's make arrangements for him to be here.
You wanna work on a certificate of appreciation or achievement,
Acknowledgement.
that acknowledgement? Whatever you do that you do so well. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, thank you, Colin.
You're welcome.
And, we'll move on to, Western Berks.
You have our monthly report. There were 264 incidents in the borough. Of that, 224 were transported, 12 people refused. We had 3 standbys, Wyomissing football, 22 cancellations and 3 assists. Of that breakdown, 103 of them were ALS calls with a paramedic, 122 were basic life support calls with just the EMT, and 27 were downgraded from an ALS call to a BLS call. As always, the Highlands breakdown in Country Meadows, there were 31 calls for service at the Highlands and 19 calls for Country Meadows. So it was good. Our dispatch to responding time is 1 minute and 3 seconds. Our average on-scene time is 12 minutes and 58, well below our 20-minute mark. And the busiest day was 2 p.m., or the busiest time was 2 p.m. with 28 incidents. And as always, usually, most of the patients do go to Reading Hospital. 23 did go to St. Joe's. Our total volume for the year is 2497. We continue to serve a couple of things that are going on with the organization. Our deputy chief, Gary Fry, is no longer with us. She took a job with Citroni Ambulance, starting today. Making
Did we
a,
do all your billboards?
the face of Western Berks is gone. Making a very large, significant, more money.
Where did you check it up?
Citroni, Up and
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
it's a good catch for them. We will miss her dearly. We've already started our succession planning and moving assistant chiefs to cover jobs and all that. Other than that, the EMS authority continues to move through some processes. We're scheduling a meeting with the other municipalities. We are working with the CELG for whatever support they can give. As previously stated, I don't believe a EMS authority is viable in the next year, unless it's a scaled down model of less municipalities. I mean, trying to get 16, 18 municipalities together to do something of that nature is gonna take some time, even getting the 6 that already do the municipality funding. But we're continuing to work towards that goal. Of School of Good Things thought, House Bill 1351 passed to increase our Medicaid allowables to the higher of the 2 of Medicare or Medicaid. So whichever one is higher we can get, so that's gonna be a little bit of an increase for us. And they also took the mileage restriction away from the EMS. Before, if we took a Medicaid patient to the hospital, we couldn't bill until it was after mile 20. So bill from mile 21 on. Now we'll be able to bill from mile 0. So that'll have a little bit of effect of help. But again, it's basically putting a little bit of a tourniquet on a major bleeder. I will be going to DC on Wednesday to see a premiere of a movie called Honorable but Broken, EMS in Crisis, that was done with Sarah Jessica Parker at the Rayburn Building. Hopefully, we're hoping that we'll be able to bring that video back. It talks about everything that we've been talking about for years, how EMS is an essential service, but we've got to find a new way to recreate it and fund it. So, more to follow.
Very good. Any questions for Tony? We have brought up, I've updated everyone that we did have our first meeting, and that at this point, we're just waiting to hear from you again as to, the next time.
We're dealing with the CLG. We have another meeting with them on Tuesday the 7th. They're taking some of the forefront lead. The bill for the county authority is in place, but the firefighters union, the PPFA, is fighting it. They were taken out of it, so it just pertains to EMS, but now they're fighting it. So we'll see where that goes.
Because it's fire department based EMS.
I guess.
Don't make
I
sense.
don't. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Moving on to police department, John.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to bring up that I received a request from, for the Mind Your Health 5K for Saturday, April 27th of next year. I'm bringing this to your attention. I've already spoken with the borough manager about this event and events that will be coming for next year, over the summer, spring and summer. This is gonna be during the time that the Stonehouse area is looking to be under construction for the renovations down there. And because of all that, having these types of events down there, I don't think is going to work. So it would be my recommendation that these events be denied while that construction is going on, just for the safety of everybody down there. We don't want people getting involved in any of the construction stuff, getting hurt, they're gonna look to sue the borough. So I would recommend for this one to be denied. They are already aware that this is what was going to be suggested, and to start looking for another location. But if you so inclined to agree with me about denying, I'd like to know what you would want me to do for those that are going to come in between now and the spring of next year. Would you like me to just deny them, or continue to bring them to the committee to go through that process of officially denying?
Can we play it by ear? Depending where we are in what's,
I think
what
it's,
shape
I
it
think
is.
it's gonna be kinda tough, because we don't, they're gonna have to then go through their planning and advertising and everything, and then if we last minute say, oh, we're not ready, there's a setback. I don't think it's fair to them to say, no, you have to find someplace last minute and change everything.
What is the suggested timeline?
Typically May through the end of September. I mean, I already had the calendar blocked out on my rec, which is where you could go to rent the Stonehouse facility, for May through September. And when this application came in, I corresponded with, what is it, Greater Reading Mental Health Alliance, I think that's behind it. I corresponded with them to let them know what was going on, and that, we're not gonna know specifics until the contract's put out to bid and it's awarded, but my guess would be the event would not be able to take place at the Stonehouse next year, and she was fine with that.
We gave them a specific route that they must follow if they're gonna have it.
It starts and
It
ends
starts at the
down.
Stonehouse.
It
Yeah.
starts and ends there, and now they must rent the Stonehouse, because they set up tents and things like that. So they're just not gonna be able to do that with everything going on down there.
I mean, the conversation the chief and I had was basically figure on there not being any 5Ks. I mean, and that's the time of year that most of them are held, is April through September, minus a few in October and November, so there won't be 5Ks next
There's
year.
no other location that they can use as their starting point.
That seems to be the,
What becomes the issue is the only other good place would be the quarry. I had mentioned that before when we had talked about creating that designated route, but the problem with the quarry, it's rented to the soccer club and they're utilizing it for,
And the school probably doesn't wanna get involved.
well, the other, well, I don't know about that, we'd have to get their permissions but the issue is, the route that is picked, I can man it with 2 officers and get it done. Depending on where it starts and ends, it might be more than that. Now, I do not wanna have to have something where I have multiple officers out several times a year to cover that. It's difficult to do.
We're working on a calendar that starts in May. One big event coming up on the 4th of July. The construction, how's that going to be managed in
There-
order for us to control the lack of ability to get to where everybody wants to be at that time?
the contractor is gonna be made aware when the bid docs are put out to bid. We need access to the stone house the week of the 4th of July.
Well, that's a pretty big ask,
No, I
because access to
mean-
the
Okay.
stone house is.
Okay, you have a valid point. Let's, because we're talking 2 different things here right now. Okay, yes, let's deal with John's request and then we can move into what you're saying about the 4th of July. So it is your recommendation,
It is my recommendation that this be denied, so I would ask that motion be made to deny this request.
and any
And
others
and then,
subsequent.
and then a follow-up would be, as I said, is do you want me to continue to bring these to the committee as they come in to formally deny them, or am I authorized to let them know, no, it's denied this year because of the construction and so on?
One thought that I had on this is maybe we should take the proactive route and send letters to these organizations that we've dealt with in the past and just let them know, due to, you know, improvements to the stone house, you know, we're not gonna be able to accommodate your run this year.
I can do that. I was going to put something on our social media stuff where we have the information regarding this, where they go
Doesn't hurt
download
too, but I think
everything.
an individual letter to these people would also be, just
So
some,
are we talking about all the events or just this one?
we're talking about just the race, the
5Ks,
5Ks and the
Well,
10.
they're all during that time period.
correct.
Many are, yes.
So you're gonna send a letter out to everybody saying.
I can do just a draft, basic general letter. That's kind of, right, you know.
Well, the
one
other thing
letter
I'm
out,
trying
that'll
to,
cover all the events.
I'm not trying to shut everything down and also not trying to open everything up. But if you're dealing with one, then you gotta deal with the rest of them too.
That's
So-
what they're saying, they're gonna do it for all of them. They're
Yeah.
gonna say none.
Right, so they're
No
not.
events.
Right.
Okay, well, are we gonna do that?
Yeah.
Somebody wish to make that motion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we need council approval of these things, and we've always taken these to council too?
Yeah, they do go to council, so this will be a recommendation from committee of council.
Okay, so the council would have to make a determination. I'll make the motion that we deny the Reminder Health 5K and any other 5Ks that are scheduled for May to September 2024 with notice, as much as we can give to people who had their 5Ks year before.
The only caveat here is Michelle, what's the timeline on putting the stone house out to bid?
Within the next couple of weeks.
Because depending on what the bids come in at, that
Mm.
project may not happen.
Or we could phase it and do some of it.
But I mean, it's all the funding's gonna be contingent on what the bids come in at, and if the bids come in too high, regardless of the match, we're not gonna do it.
And there's how many, John, how many events that we've had in the past that would fall into that time period?
Probably 6 to 8.
Yeah, I think that's gonna create chaos in advance, which is not necessary until we look at what you're talking about, to see
Just
what we
saying that,
can
I
do
think
and not.
the consensus was that if the bids come in too high, the project may not happen, so it may be premature to say you're not gonna have any events this year.
When are we gonna receive bids?
We haven't even put them out.
I know, I'm just thinking, is it?
I'm waiting for McCarthy's office is putting together the drawings that are gonna be part of the bid specs that are put out, so.
We might not award this contract, if we award it at all, until the December meeting.
Or possibly even January. I don't know what his bid opening time period is gonna be. But I mean, this came up from knowing that that's coming, and John's right, like, we feel that there's a responsibility to the people that are running these events to let them know with as much advance notice as possible, this probably isn't gonna happen and you should be looking for an alternate location.
Okay, is it also a possibility to offer to them that their event could be held in 2024, but after the project is complete? Like say, you can't do it in April, but you can do it in whenever, when they'll be ready.
Well, I don't know when it's gonna be ready, but
Yeah, it would seem. to
that's
me-
gonna be almost, I think, then like every weekend we're gonna have
Yeah,
an event.
and some of that's gonna be,
So I'm gonna have hunting time through there that I'm dealing with.
So you'd rather
vacation
shut it
stuff.
down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be,
I understand.
Well, it makes more sense to do what Steve's suggesting to start with, because if we can't do it, it's not
It's
gonna
not
be
Steve.
a problem.
Steve is not there.
All of these organizations that we have been partnering with for years are not gonna be happy, particularly when it's just chaos and we don't know whether it's gonna happen or not. And the bids might not show up till the end of December, we might be looking at anything until January. And then you've gotta look at all the contractors involved here and coordinate this, so we're not closed down for Christmas of next year. It's a big deal, and I think taking a short view of it doesn't make any sense.
My thought on this is that you're better off telling them no, because you can't tell them yes. Even if you don't do the project, you,
we won't know that
But
until
why
it's too
tell
late.
them no now when there's nothing happening and nothing may happen until we get the bids?
they start
Because-
putting out their
And
advertisements
as-
for these events to get runners to come in,
No, I think you have
vendors
to
and
know.
things like that.
As someone that's been part of chairing a 5K, it's pretty hard to pull an event together in 4 months when you have to do a complete change of venue.
if there's a reasonable possibility that the facility is not available, we think you have to just say no now. Just to,
And that would be worded that way. It means it's not definitely closed, but it may be, it's under construction during this period of time, and we want you to know in advance, give you courtesy. That's part of the motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second, further question on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
I'll write that letter for after council to go out. And then, as, we spoke about changes for the fire department rules for the civil service, I have submitted a couple of, suggested changes, for rules for the civil service. The first is section 3.8 under, general qualifications for all applicants. That's the section that reads what you have to have in order to apply. So there we have to talk about the high school, your age, it talks about how many credits we need for college, and then there's so many credits if you have, are a veteran, or if you are already certified through Act 120. That's what the subsections that I have listed there, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, all talk about. What I'm suggesting is that we remove the college requirement to apply to become a police officer here. I am suggesting, as you can see then, what we offer then is additional points for people that have credits towards degrees for college. I'm doing this based upon our last hiring cycle here and the amount of applications we received. As a reminder, we received 12. We had 9 actually show up for the test. and we've dwindled ourselves down to the 2 that we hired. We are the only department in the county that requires any kind of college. Spring Township, I know, does it like this. They give points for college applications. I'm trying to think of ways in which we get people in the door. I've said it, this is the one thing that I think is our biggest threat for law enforcement, so to speak, is the ability to get people in the door nowadays. Nobody wants to do these types of jobs that Colin, Tony, and I are trying to lead here. So the ability to have other people be able to apply, but then also the ability for those that have that education to get more points at the end of the process after they've taken their written test and the oral interviews and that might be able to get them higher in the eligibility list. There was an article in the Reading Eagle at the end of September, I don't know if any of you saw it, trooper applicant pool grows larger. State police removed that requirement. The article says in the months since requirements were dropped, 1,217 applicants applied, 524 of whom hold a high school diploma or equivalent, the agency said. In the last hiring cycle, 1,745 applications were received over 6 months. So in 1 month, they received 2/3 of what they received in 6 months. So we need to do whatever we can to widen that applicant pool. So that is why I'm making that recommendation, that suggestion. The second one has to do with 3.9 general qualifications for promotions. To become a sergeant here, you have to have 5 years experience here. I'm suggesting that we keep it at that 5 years, but we allow part of that time to come from other agencies within the state, so that they are familiar with the laws of Pennsylvania. Then 1 year has to be still here, so they're off probation. Quite honestly, I'm doing this to try to recruit officers from other agencies. I have time there. All right, and that's what this job's gonna be right now. Every agency's trying to steal from the other. So this is a way where they can take that experience that they have and they can bring it here and not have to start over and wait another 5 years till they're eligible to take that test.
Makes sense.
The recording and filing of the applications for 3.10, this is a bit like what Colin was speaking about. I'm trying to make it easier in which for applications to be picked up and dropped off. The biggest change is that it can be done by electronic means and that the applications come to me. The way they currently read, they're supposed to go to the borough secretary. So that way they can come to me, and then I have in there that I will then make sure that the borough secretary gets the applications. So that if she keeps a record of when they come in, but with modern day electronic means with email, it's time stamped. When these emails are received. And to answer a question you had for Colin, whenever an application comes in, what I have been doing, whether it's been, I email the person and I let them know that, thank you for, I've received your email, thank you for your interest, and whatever. And I create an electronic file for the hiring that's going on. That email gets put in there, into that file, so I have that maintained and easily defined later on. And then the last two with sections 5.5 and 5.6 is something that, what it currently states is that for everybody that gets hired and promoted, they're supposed to get a physical, psychological, and a drug test. For being hired, I get that, and I don't believe that that should change. What I'm asking is that it would be removed for the promotion. So the one thing I will say that the psychological and all that was done when Sergeant Bauer and Sergeant Schaefer were promoted last year. I made sure it was done, and I read the rules, civil service, and I thought that was something that was new put in before I became the chief. I thought it was put in during the time of when the PT test was originally instated, I think about 2020. But apparently it's something that's been there for a long time. But I can say that it's not been done. When I became sergeant, I was never told I had to do a psychological and drug test and physical and things like that. So I don't know if it was, I can't speak for the former chief, why, what was done and what wasn't done. If he didn't realize it was supposed to be done, I have no idea. I can just tell you that it has not been done going back a long time. So I think that having something like that in there also, I think, poses some risk in that to be hired, as it says, it has to be done. And now if they have something come back that says there's an issue, what do we do? What if their psychological says they're not right? What are we gonna do? Because they're gonna say, I got a psychological to get hired, and I was sane. Now, however many years later, what's different? I've worked here and did this job for how long?
Don't you wanna know that?
Well, the thing is, under Act 59 now, which is a law that covers psychologicals, there are certain requirements for them to be done throughout their employment, such as if they're involved in an officer-involved shooting. If they request help, they're required to get it. If I, as the chief, feel as though there's something going on with that officer, I can require that now, that they be checked by a doctor. So I think the law kind of helps us there anyway now, as it is.
So if you're doing a review of your personnel on an annual basis, whatever that review looks like should include something that would suggest certain incidents or something that would flag something in their performance, that when they get to the part where you're in the promotional world, if that fits into the definition of the psychological, physical stuff, it would seem to me that you should dig a little further at that point with that person's background from the annual review that they're getting, assuming it's comprehensive enough to determine that. Don't you understand what I'm saying?
No, I missed that. I don't get that.
If you're going to have, if you have 25 officers and they're subject to an annual review, the first question is.
But they don't get a psychological review.
No.
No, I didn't say that, but there could have been incidents involving their performance over that year that would be flagged in that process that might need to be considered for a promotional purpose, and it may need to have that medical or psychological exam to move forward at that point, or at least take a second look at what happened during the year 2, 3, 4, or 5.
You're saying that if you have incidents like that, they would already be subject to a psychological evaluation,
Yes.
regardless of promotability or not.
Well, at that time, the question is, if it's at that time when the event occurs, that's fine. If it's a shooting or something like that, which should require some sort of review. The question then is, if 3 years later they want a promotion, you might want to look back at that and say, do we want to have this person undertake another psychological review to make sure we're on the right page? But if we don't have, if it's not in the review, it's not going to matter.
Well, I think it could be changed to something like may be done instead of shall be done. You
Yeah.
can change it that simply. There's a difference between shall and may. May doesn't necessarily require it.
It just doesn't seem like it hurts anything. You know, it's a step that, why wouldn't you, kind of thing.
Well, like I said, I might.
About having different requirements for different officers. I think you gotta be consistent. Everybody who's up for promotion should be subject to the same standard.
Well, I'm trying to see, I actually think they should require another review at that point, because now they're running the show, and not just one of a number of people, so it doesn't, we don't lose anything having the psychological being done, just another thing in our quiver to say, he's good to go. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You're not telling me you're a bad guy, you're saying this is what you have to do.
Because you say you can't leave it up to the chief's discretion.
I think where there are incidents that occur or there is a situation with an officer where in the chief's discretion, that officer should be evaluated. I think the law gives the chief that discretion right now. In the context of promotion, where you are making people stand up for a test, I think it seems strange to me that some officers might be subjected to it and others not. I don't know on what basis the chief would make a determination, you know, in the context of promotion. Why would you evaluate some and not others? That seems to be potential discrimination to me. So I think if there's a concern that there should be evaluations, I think they ought to be applied to everybody in the promotional context. Where there are incidents that occur, where there's special concern, the chief already has a discretion. So, I mean, I guess my point is just, I think it ought to be, in the context of promotion, people should be required to comply with the same requirements.
Chief, I guess my question is, I totally agree with you on all the other ones. Why don't you want to do this? Why do you think it's harmful?
Well, one of the points the chief said that I agree with is, what do you do?
Well,
If a guy's an
that's right.
existing officer and he doesn't pass.
If he doesn't pass, then what do we do?
But isn't that a
Is it-
bigger issue than
Well,
than whether he's promoted or not?
yes, it is, but how do I say this? I'm not, if I feel as though, as the law says with Act 9, that somebody needs help, they can be ordered to get it. We as the borough would be responsible for those costs, but I mean, that's all part of it.
I think it.
I like to think that I know, having been here 27 years, that I know who they are, and when things are off, I've noticed things, and we talk about things, and people have been steered in that direction. Since I'm not gonna go into who and what,
Yeah.
but people have been steered in that direction already. I'm just worried then, okay, their doctor comes, our doctor now, they have a psychological, now they're out, and so they're off, we're gonna incur those costs of doing the test, number one, when we may not necessarily need to do it. I'm worried that if it comes back with something, quite honestly, now we're off. Now, do we getting a disability pension if they can't be cops again? That's what we're gonna end up probably having to do. I guess I'm asking you to trust me, knowing that when I see it, I am already steering it that way.
What happens when you're not here and we have a chief
Well-
that's been here for 2
Well,
months? That's my concern.
I guess I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, if you've got a patrolman out there who may or may not have some issues and he applies for promotion and we're willing to, he might be a little off, but I think he's gonna be okay, and we promote him, now we've got a marginal individual who may or may not have problems as a patrolman, who now is a sergeant who may or may not have a bigger issue, who's now supervising patrol. I don't know, it just seems like it's another stopgap of making sure you don't have a longer term or even more severe problem.
Is the easiest way to fix this just to make it a requirement, period?
Well, I mean, that's,
Yes.
Well,
like I
that's
said,
what it
it
is.
is, it is now, it's just that it hasn't been done. I mean, it hasn't been.
Well, it all comes
I
back.
mean, except for Sergeant Bauer and Sergeant Schaefer, it hasn't been done.
But if we have 24, 26 guys, how many do we have now? 20?
Well, we have, right now, there are 24 on the books.
All right, so we have 24 people. It comes down to the review process on an annual basis and what's contained in that review. Is it just simply a questionnaire that the chief goes through, or is it developed to eke out or find things that might need to be bettered or what during that time? Because if you have 5 years worth of those reviews, then you're gonna have a pretty good bank of knowledge whether or not this person is fit for promotion. And
Those
if you
reviews
have,
don't include a psychological.
no, I understand that, but my point is if the review is good enough and substantial enough, then there's probably nothing gonna slip through. Because if you had your guys review your guys, and then you get to the promotion end, psychological should be duck soup at that point.
The other thing that I can say about that, though, maybe I'm mishearing what you're saying, the reviews that are done on the officers, there's nothing about reviews in the promotional process. In other words, it's spelled out what they have to do to be promoted, and in the rules of civil service, it is they take the written test, there's the physical agility test that's next, and then there's the interviews that are done. Then they get their score, and that's it. I mean, that's all that's in the requirements for promotion.
Is that
And
hard now?
that's,
Is that what we're doing now?
that's what we're doing, that's what we've done, that's what's in our rules of civil service. So that's where we're at with the promotion process now. Everything is done. It is, the list is to go to, for certification at civil service on the 6th. So there's nothing as far as that's in there for a review of performance, let's say, for promotions here.
Yeah, but I think that's crazy. The state police have a review process at every point. And if you're up for promotion, everything you've done from the moment you went through the academy is part of the review process for you to get a promotion. You don't eliminate that and start over and say, this is what we have to look at, and you're just great. When in fact, there might be information in his first 5 years that, if uncovered, if we looked at it, what might give us a second thought, especially if you're not here next. Somebody's gonna have to go through lots of stuff.
So you're saying that if a person has qualifications of being here for 5 years, they have 10 disciplinary letters in
Well,
their
so
file, they can still get promoted?
There's something in there that if you've had anything, a write-up or more, then you're not eligible for the promotion.
Okay, so
For
there
a
is-
year, for a
okay.
year prior to the.
So there is some stop.
There's some, yes, but I mean, if you're looking back 5 years and it was a write-up that happened 5 years ago, you're not looking back that far, because that reckoning period more likely is over with. So that may not be there.
Well, it should always be part of.
I will say that there's one municipality that I understand has something like that, that's Kutztown Borough. They have some, I'm not intimately familiar with what their rules are for that, but I know that they have some kind of a review process of things like that for promotions. But as it stands in our civil service rules now, there is no requirement for that to be done. But if you're saying you're not comfortable with the 5.5.5.6, then like I said, I did it last time, we'll continue to do it if that's what the committee and council will want. So, and then just so I understand, because what my hope is, after the November 6th civil service meeting, council meets November 14th, is that the date?
Yes.
That would be the date that I would like to have the promotions done. So it would be after that date then would be like a condition of, that they would then have to have this done, and that once it's passed, then it's full, or do I have to wait until the December council meeting to have the promotions done?
I think we wanna mirror everything that we're doing for fire as well, and, have Chris, review it after back from, civil service.
But if that's the 6th, then we can look at it and decide it, not at this committee, but for a council.
Correct.
Right, that's,
The
In
14th.
November.
right.
Yeah, I mean, hypothetically, you could move this on to council at the November meeting, but it's up to you. I mean, this committee has to bind with it.
But I thought the purpose of this committee is to delve deep enough into the subject that we don't throw it into the council chambers at a council meeting and have have 4 people that haven't even spent a half hour on this, run the ball on this. I think this is a subject that needs to be discussed significantly to determine whether or not we think it's a good idea or a bad idea. There's a lot going on here that needs to be considered.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
To be honest, I'm fine with letting civil service review it, get their recommendations, and then we put it to council. I don't know that, I mean, we're sitting here, we've got 4 members of council there now that certainly heard both sides of the argument and can certainly debate it at the council meeting.
So I'm not sure who's on the Civil Service Commission that's gonna trump what we wanna do. I mean, are they doctors, grocers? What do they do for a living? Are they gonna be capable of digging into what we do every day when it comes to looking over our 24 officers here and how they can
Well,
best serve
the
public?
commission is, they're pretty well attuned. One happens to be a judge, or
Well, I just don't know enough about it to know what they're gonna be talking about when they make a determination.
We've always had a consensus. I mean, in my experience, the civil service rules, that there's a dialogue between council and the civil service commission and,
But are they voting on what we want to do at the commission? Because it sounds like there's only one police department in all of Berks County that does what we're talking about doing or undoing. Are they considering what we're talking about now at the commission and telling us what they recommend us to do?
The only debate is whether they're gonna, the only hang up as of now, I mean, for me, I agree with everything John wants to do. The only thing I'm questioning is whether the person should have a psychological evaluation
Of course.
if they're open for promotion.
Right.
That's the only issue.
Well, who's gonna make that
Well,
decision?
there's not another police, I don't understand what you mean by one.
He said
police
there's one
department.
department that does this review stuff with the early stuff and the later
Right,
stuff.
there's only one, but that's not even
Well,
on
there's
the,
only
that's not even
one.
on the board, that's not on the agenda. That's not part of the recommendation that he's making.
But the psychological is on their table, and there's only one that it's on the
No,
table
that's
to
not,
vote.
No, I don't know of any that do, I don't know of any department that for promotion requires a physical, psychological, and drug test.
Okay.
We are the only one that does that. Kutztown, as part of their promotional process, has a review of their work performance. That's
for the
part of.
entire career as opposed to
Yeah.
what ours structures is 1 year.
Well, it's the same answer then. If nobody else does it, then the chance of the commission coming back and saying, Wyomissing should do this because it's really important is.
Well, they're already saying it, because this is the rule now. I'm asking for it to be stopped, as for what I said.
It's
So
already in there.
Well, then maybe they're, okay, then, I don't know, we're throwing it into somebody and we don't know what they're thinking. Whether we could tell them what we
I
want to
think
do.
that's why you have a separate.
Well, that's right. You're asking civil service, or John's asking civil service to
Change.
remove it,
Right, okay.
okay? So it has to go before civil service.
So do they get to know who the right to stay?
well, that's the point of this discussion today, is to have this committee recommend what the Civil Service Commission reviews and considers approving.
Does somebody want to make a motion either way, either keep it or remove it?
I'll make a motion to keep it.
I think we're doing it reverse, when it goes to civil service, see what they say, and come back to us. And
We need to do it because of the upcoming promotion.
Because the, yeah,
So that they want to decide at council as opposed to bring it back to fire,
Yes.
which I'm okay with.
I'm okay with that. The council doesn't have to follow what they say.
No,
It can go either, it's a dialogue.
so we have a motion to remove. You want to make your, or to keep it, I mean?
I don't think, I thought we were gonna move this on to civil service.
Just to
Like we
make
did
our
fire.
recommendation to civil service,
Okay, somebody just said we need to make a motion, so we'll say.
to make a recommendation to
That-
civil.
That's not what we did with fire.
No.
We're tabling it, letting civil service
Okay,
look at this first.
then let's let them look
So-
at it first. I thought we were under more of a time constraint.
We are, because we're gonna decide at the November council meeting as opposed to
You're gonna decide fire as well, at
Right.
the November council.
Yeah, okay. Moving on to civil service.
I'll throw in.
And then, so we good? The next I wanted to talk about, going back to is the
Wait,
special.
hang on a minute.
I have a concern. If we don't make a recommendation on the police promotional regulations to the Civil Service Commission, Civil Service Commission will make some kind of response to what John has prepared. If council does not agree with the Civil Service Commission, we are then in a timing issue, or potential. I mean, my belief is that if we don't accept what Civil Service Commission does with John's proposal, or if council doesn't accept what Civil Service Commission does with John's proposal, then we won't have final civil service regulations in place as of the November council meeting.
Sure, it's what it is. It's what it will be what it is now.
Correct.
So we'll always have a rule.
That is correct. I just want to talk through what the consequences of there being a disagreement between the Civil Service Commission and the borough are. And I think Fred has identified, there wouldn't be a change as of that November council.
just for that
Right,
one,
so-
just for that one area.
Really, the only thing that I'm worried about is for the current promotions. So out of all that, it is the 5.5 and 5.6. So if that council meeting in November, civil service does whatever, I could still fall back to this, and at the November council meeting, you would be able to approve the promotions of those that are on the list, or it's a conditional promotion based upon then the successful completion of the physical, psychological, and drug test. Correct? So I would still be able to do the promotions in November, and then
Conditional.
conditionally, and then hopefully by fire, hopefully by fire and police at the end of November, I would know the results of those. I mean, it's based upon the doctors getting everything back to me, but I would be able to let you know that, yes, they've passed, and they've met their conditional offer.
Is there a recommendation being made at this time to the commission by John or us or no one?
Well, this document that you see up, that was on the board, this has been submitted to civil service to discuss it as part of the agenda there. And I think that that was part of, the solicitor's concern was, so they're gonna see the 5.5 and 5.6, and if they say yes to that, hey, that's great, but the council's saying differently, then it might mess up the time frame.
Can we say?
But as long as, like I said, I don't wanna delay the promotions, is what I'm trying to get at. So I'd like that to happen at the November council meeting, so that, I mean, for the people that scored the best, that you'll learn then at that point, I'm not concerned about them failing any of those things. I'm not. So, I would hope that we have everything back by fire and police in November to be able to say, hey, they've passed everything, so they're good.
Can we say to civil service that as a committee, we agree with all of John's recommendations, however, the committee has a concern about removing this section? Not saying we vote against it, voted for it, but the committee has a concern.
About the proposed changes to 5.5 and 5.6.
I can say that, I'll
But we
have
can,
that meeting.
we can say, we agree with all the other recommendations that he makes in terms of the college degree and the 5 years versus 1 year versus all that. But the committee had a lengthy discussion that has a concern and get their opinion. Maybe they'll come back and have the same concern and then it's solid. But it still gives us the out at the council meeting that if the general consensus at the council meeting is that, no, they don't agree with that, taking it out, then status quo exists with the exception of all those other things, and then we move on.
Right. The rules will only be changed on those sections which both the Civil Service Commission and the council agree to the same change.
So then I will make a motion that
He
we,
just said, the Civil Service Commission will not make a change unless council agrees to the change.
no, what he said was that the change can't go into effect unless both agree. That's not what he said. He
You
didn't.
just said what he just said. The change is
Okay.
not gonna go into effect if council doesn't agree.
If both
That's correct.
parties don't agree, correct?
Right. So, what does this mean? What's the point? If you're going to the commission, and the commission gets a piece of paper that John recommends we change it, and we don't, then the commission's not gonna change it. So we're right back to where we started from.
We're just informing the commission that this body, this committee has a concern with that section.
And they're gonna
So that
say-
they should take a look at it seriously the same way. Maybe they'll come back, they should have the same debate we're having.
They won't. You just said that. They will not change it unless we tell them we wanna change it.
That's not what I said.
Well, tell us what you said.
What I said was that the Civil Service Commission and the council must agree on changes. If they don't agree to the same changes to the same sections of the rules, those sections will remain as they currently are.
All right, so what am I missing?
If you're missing the fact that I'm asking them to have the same debate we are just having now.
And he just told you what their answer would be.
I don't know what their answer is, we
He
didn't
just
tell them.
said, if the commission doesn't see council supporting that change, they won't recommend it.
Well, I don't know if that's true or not. That's not what he said.
Let's make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we convey to the Civil Service Commission that we are, this committee is in agreement with all of John's recommendations. However, there is a concern and a debate as to whether the elimination of the physical, drug, and psychological evaluation.
Just say
should be
sections
made.
5.5, 5.6.
Exactly, that's what I said.
A second motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
We have one
Okay,
abstention.
John.
I
Okay,
know what I'm saying.
okay.
Okay, next I wanted to discuss, with special events, the reimbursement. I talked about this last year and about actually charging these entities for the services that, for us for traffic control. And at that time, it was not a desire for us to charge these entities for the service, except for, the Reading Hospitals, their half marathon because it's so labor intensive, and the I Am Able, which is also labor intensive for us. So they're the only two that get charged. When I put this together, I looked at the cost of what we've paid out to officers to cover all these events that are not reimbursed. And at the time of this, we've had some since then, we have paid out just over $3,200 in overtime to cover the costs for these events. So I'm asking again if the committee still, and then their perhaps council, if they still have that desire to not charge these entities for the events that they have here. It is, it's not the greatest amount, largest amount that we're paying out, but it is, it's not $500 either, it's, so, and I know we're in budget discussions and we're looking at needing to make cuts for things that, maybe it's time that these entities need to pay for the services. It is in the schedule for fees. It's $100 for nonprofit and $150 for profit entities for things like this. So since they're nonprofit agencies or entities, I would say that they would get charged that $100 per hour per officer. It's a 3-hour minimum per the contract, so that's what they'd be looking at. So,
What's the prerequisite for who we decide to charge and who we don't decide to charge?
like I said, what has always been charged, and I assume it's because of how labor intensive it is the I Am Able and the Friends of Reading Hospital. The Friends of Reading Hospital event, I would say we could not do if the sheriff department said to us, they're no longer gonna help. There's just no way that we could do it. They're helping us in West Reading.
So you're charging based on the complexity of the event?
Right, so
Okay.
the I Am Able, that has 7 of us that are doing that event, you know, so it's not the typical 5K where I said we can get this down to 2 officers and handle it. Fitzy's run was this, on Sunday yesterday, and it was an issue with getting a second person to do it, and, you know, I've discussed a lot of this stuff with you. I came out and worked it. I didn't wanna order somebody in for it, so I did it. So it's just, it's easy to handle it with the 2 officers there, but when it's those 2 events, you know, it's multiple officers need to be there, and it's a lot of money for those events that we're spending. So they are reimbursed. I submit a copy of the overtime reports for the event to Phyllis, and she puts an invoice out.
These are all nonprofit organizations.
They're all nonprofit.
If you had a standard rate of $300, would that?
Well, like I said, under the fee schedule now that the borough has, it has $100 an hour for nonprofit agencies and $150 for profit agencies. So if Walmart wanted us for something like back in the day when we had Black Friday and, you know, things like that, when they would ask for security, that's, I think, where that was probably developed for that. They would be charged $150 an hour, and it's a 3-hour minimum for the contract. So.
Well, we have a fee schedule.
Right, so I think that we just go by that they're told it's $100 per hour, it's gonna be a minimum of 3 hours, it's gonna take 2 officers to do it. So.
That's $600.
Right. And if it goes longer, yesterday we were there for 4.5. You know, so, took a little longer. But I'm eating that cost in the overtime, whereas they could be billed for that 4.5 hours at $100 an hour. So, again, like I said, I asked for this last year, but we were inclined to not charge, so I'm putting it out there to say that, you know, maybe looking going forward in 2024, I mean, we may not have a whole lot now because of the 5Ks with the, issues down at the Stone House with the construction, but I think it's something that we wanna consider going forward.
Personally, I think we have a fee schedule in place for profit and nonprofit. We follow that. There's no differentiation. Is what it is. Entertain a motion to that effect.
I'm usually the one that's pretty much on my this kind of thing. But at the same time, I just hate, you have these small organizations that they're a nonprofit organization doing a good deed for a good cause, and some of them even donate money back to the borough, and now we're gonna charge them. I have mixed emotions about it.
I don't have mixed emotions, I don't think we should do it, period. I'm in favor of maintaining the status quo.
But as I hear it, hasn't been charged.
They have not been.
Who was?
Even though it's in the fee schedule.
Correct, we have traditionally, this is going back as far as I know forever, that these entities have never been charged for these events.
I think you might wanna differentiate between for-profit and profit, that for-profit should be charged.
Well, yeah, but none of these entities are
Yeah, I know.
for-profit.
Well, that's the
so.
thing. I mean, if there are any of them are for profit, they absolutely should.
I think the only for-profit goes back to the stores on Black Friday, where they had the lines, and we would be out there for some, but I mean, it's not like everybody goes to Amazon or wherever, you know, we haven't been requested to have security on those days for years.
If we have a category of all these runs as a general category, how much money do we spend on all of them totaled out?
Well, that's what I said to you. When I prepared this, as of right now, we're at just over $3,200 for the year.
Total.
Yes, that's.
It's not worth our time to bust everybody's chops for $3,200.
I just don't.
Especially the
Yeah, I-
significance of the organization.
I get it, normally I'm all for it, and like I said, like Fred just said, I just hate to see small organizations get charged. If they're gonna make $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000 on the event, they're gonna donate it to somebody for some good cause, and now we're gonna whack them 10% of what they just took in.
I agree. If the circumstances change where the number goes to $20,000 and they're giving away cars or something, then maybe we can change our concept. $3,200 for all the organizations and the people involved in them, doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, don't you have to look at it a little bit more fundamentally? You have to look at the changing the actual fee schedule that exists, which is being ignored.
We gotta get rid of the fee schedule. What do we have a
Oh.
fee schedule for? We're not gonna use
So
it.
that's my whole point.
Well, we can do both, not charge them and do away with the fee schedule.
I think you
I
might
think you
wanna
wanna be
leave.
careful. I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
that Friends of Reading
If you wanna
Hospital,
come
that's a
to
big
us.
event right there. That's,
How would we differentiate complexity
I had,
in the discretion of the police?
I had 10 officers, I think, working on that. We had 14 sheriff deputies, and we had 8 bus driving officers. So, I mean, that's a day that the scheduling software is locked. People aren't able to take off while that event's going on, and, you know.
Historical reference, we used to say if it was a group from in the borough,
I
and
don't-
they're based in the borough, that we wouldn't charge them versus an outsider
We
coming
did at
in.
one point, but this thing
So
is
there wasn't
run-
like 15 other running events just because they liked the scenery they ran past. I don't know.
I don't know how, I don't know the history of it, you know, I wasn't involved in it back then, I'm looking at it now with now that I'm doing this, I'm seeing the number of events we get, but I looked into how much it cost us, and I know what we're talking about budget wise,
Let's
so.
just continue to carry on as we are. You know, we can certainly afford $3,200.
And then lastly, I wanted to let you know that the 2 individuals that were left on the hiring list have all completed the items they needed to for the conditional offer. They have passed everything successfully. They will be starting on November 6th.
One needs the academy, though.
One needs the academy,
When was that?
January. So, I can tell you their names now. It is Cooper Henry and Andrew Dibden. Cooper Henry's got 2 first names. To me, Henry Cooper sounds more, but I always have to think about it for a second. So it's Cooper Henry and Andrew Dibden. They will be starting here November 6th.
It's like Chris Sam.
What's that?
It's like Chris Sam.
Yeah.
It took me the longest time to say Chris Sam and say Chris.
So then that's all that I have.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. You have
I
something?
got one point to bring up with John. Minding my business on Wyomissing Field the other night on Saturday, and instead of watching a cop show on television, I looked out my front window, and there were 2 officers that had stopped someone on Wyomissing Boulevard, and the issue obviously we could see was there was a probably a DUI, possibly something else going on, but there were 2 cars there, and I gotta say, this went on for about an hour, right in front of my house. 2 cars, lights flashing, 2 people in the car, 1 was ultimately arrested. And I gotta tell you, the decorum and professionalism that those 2 guys showed these people, one of which got arrested in the middle of traffic flying by there all night long, just gives you the flavor of what kind of traffic there is on the cocaine highway going through Wyomissing Boulevard, and the decorum that those guys provided is a real testament. If if you don't see them in action, you see this for an hour. They spend an hour just there figuring out whether this guy is going in or he wasn't going, but hats off to your guys. They do a good job.
Excellent.
Anything else for John? Thank you, Chief. Okay, West Side Emergency Management, Tom.
I'll make this real short. The 2023 Emergency Operation Plan final update was delivered to the county and Phil Spence on October 17th, so we're all done there. I've gotten everybody's resolutions, so we're clear. And the Code Red ballot data process was completed on September 27th, and they had to make it real short. They eliminated 12,015 phone numbers that were no longer valid or true non-working numbers, they call it. So it should help improve, you know, I put down there the speed and efficiency of the call-out rate. So that was out of 48,000, 12,000 were removed, which were, I'm sure, either fax machines or numbers that people dropped and don't use anymore, so. And the other thing that requires, this committee to make a, acceptance, deny, or table is the hazmat mitigation. Has got its final approval from FEMA, and municipalities can now vote on the local resolution, and we have one prepared for next council, is that correct?
Is that my screen?
Yeah, but I mean, that's for council meeting. So that needs to be passed on from this committee with a motion of.
Make a motion, we recommend the council to approve the resolution.
Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And that's all I have. I don't know that C, I don't know, Melissa?
No, I'll take care of that.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think it was the plan. Okay.
Anybody have any questions for Tom?
Anything?
I'll bet you the 12,000 would drop with all people who gave up landlines.
A lot of them were, plus fax machines and things that were on there that we had no way of knowing until it made the beeping noise that it makes when you get a. It's true.
Okay, and finally, I'm requesting a date change because of the holidays and so forth in November. And I'd like to move fire and police meeting to Wednesday, November the 29th at 12 o'clock noon. Does anybody have any issue with that?
And when was it?
It's Wednesday, November the 29th.
Yeah, but what was the?
27 was the
27.
original one on Monday.
Yeah, Monday the 27th, which is
Thanksgiving's the 30th,
No, it's the 23rd.
23rd. It's just people traveling and so forth.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay. And you'll advertise that accordingly. Very good. Okay, we are going to have a short executive session for personnel matters. I do not see this take where it's going to take any action at this time.
Do I have to go? I gotta
Okay.
Have you closed the meeting? You didn't do old business, new business.
Oh, yeah. Is there any old business to be brought before? Hearing none, new business. Hearing none, we will adjourn into executive session.